Christy, you could take it over from here.
Karen Wright
has joined the meeting.
I'm sorry, who just joined the meeting? What was your name again?
Karen Wright.
Miss Wright. Welcome, Miss Wright. I'm going to ask if you just go ahead and mute your phone. We'll be starting in a few seconds.
All right.
Has joined the meeting.
Neither of you will need to worry. Just make sure everyone remembers.
Ella Braddock
has joined the meeting.
Thank you. We should be starting shortly. If everyone could just put their devices on mute for the moment, please. Mr. Chair, I think you have about 3 commissioners on right now. They're still all joining.
Deborah Frazier
has joined the meeting.
Alicia, let me know when we have at least 5 commissioners on.
Yes, I'm still looking. They're still joining now. If everyone could just mute if they're not speaking currently, please. Thank you. Still waiting on a few, Mr. Chair. We have 4 on right now. Now you have 5. Commissioner Ortiz and Commissioner Falchacchio are on.
Great, thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. It's 1 p.m. So thank you all for joining our Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm Neil Albert, and I'm Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is our regular monthly meeting of the Housing Authority. We're holding it obviously by WebEx today because of the pandemic rather. If you are not speaking, I'm going to please encourage you to place your device on mute. And if you don't have the ability to do so, I'm going to ask Christy and Shanita to do so, so that we can minimize any feedback or disruptions. As is our custom at the beginning of our meetings, we're going to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Christy and Shanita, if you have the ability to put devices on mute, I'd appreciate that. So we
Commissioner
can
Talafaro
has joined the meeting.
minimize the disruption. So as I said, today is our regular board meeting. We have invited members of the public, as we always do, to provide testimony both on the resolutions that we will be discussing today and taking action on, and then just general issues that they'd like to bring before this Board of Commissioners. Before we go further, I would like to ask for a roll call to determine a quorum. Alicia?
Thank you. Commissioner Slover,
present.
Commissioner Council, Commissioner Strickland,
Present.
Commissioner Talafaro,
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Present.
Von Gossry. Thank you. Commissioner Falchacchio. Commissioner, I see you. Okay, there you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz-Gal.
Here.
Thank you. And Chairman Albert.
Yeah, present.
Commissioner, Chairman, you have 8 commissioners present. You have a quorum.
Thanks so much. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that our former labor representative, Diana Forrester, as you know, she left the board in December after serving for a little bit more than a year. We do have a proclamation that we're going to be giving to her when it's convenient to do so. I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but suffice it to say, we really appreciate all the efforts, all the advice, all the experience, particularly from the labor side that Commissioner Forrester brought to the board. She supported our efforts by serving on a number of committees, including the Committee on Housing Choice Vouchers, Audit and Finance, and Education. She was elected as the president of Metro Washington Council, AFL-CIO, and I'm sure she's going to continue her work in that capacity to support the men and women of union and labor. So today we are going to be, or sometime in the near future, we will be providing a proclamation to Commissioner Forrester for her service. Commissioner Forrester is replaced by our newest board member,
Has joined the meeting.
Ms. Ann Hoffman. And Ann was sworn in last month, and this is her first board meeting. So please join me in welcoming Ann to our board, and we look forward to you providing as great service as Diana did to this board. And welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So next, I'd like us to consider the minutes of two meetings. We had a December board meeting, or regular board meeting, and then we had an emergency board meeting on a December 9th board meeting, and then we had an emergency board meeting on the 11th. The minutes were provided for you to review. At this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Great. The minutes are approved. Next, we will have the executive director's report. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Garrett. Mr. Garrett, as soon as you unmute yourself, we can
Thank
hear your report.
Thanks, Shania. Okay, commissioners, I gave you a quick briefing. Again, for the good of the order, the entire director's report will be uploaded to Diligent if it hasn't already been. But I just wanted to go over a couple of key highlights for the public on what's been happening over the last 30 days. So the DCHA began on January 27th, providing vaccination sites for our seniors in conjunction with Johns Hopkins Hospital at Sibley, along with HCMA and the Department of Health, the District Department of Health. So we've been doing that for the last 3 weeks, last week and a half, really. And we're moving through pretty rapidly, getting our seniors vaccinated. We've been able to handle seniors who are 65 years or older, their health caretakers who may reside on the property, and any other individual that is under the age of 65 but residing on the property itself. So I just want you to know what our role is in the whole entire process, really to provide space in conjunction with the effort, tables, chairs, making sure that we have a clean environment, along with the opportunity to do the advanced registration that's necessary. So we have to do outreach on behalf of the organizations to ensure that the residents are aware of the on-site clinic, what the days are, and coming down. Now, this particular slide actually points out not only our sites for our clinic sites for vaccinations, but it also talks about our other service, our mobile unit, health unit, which we began some early last year. And that was in conjunction with United Medical. That is a different organization, and we're using all the facets that we possibly can, and all the organizations who are participating in the COVID effort. We're utilizing that to try and give full coverage to our properties, especially when dealing with our seniors. So you can see where we have Johns Hopkins on 3 days over the last week. And now we have United Medical, which will be coming out next week to Knox Hill to provide vaccinations, and they'll be doing it from their mobile unit. This is just a couple of photos, 3 photos from this week at Potomac Gardens. Commissioner Mangosky participated in this particular event. I think she also did receive her vaccination at that time also. These are the vaccinations by site that we've been able to provide over the last 2 weeks. And we're averaging about, as it says, about 65% of the total are individuals over the age of 62. Okay. Our next slide, we just want to jump into, I'm going to go to GW. The School of Nursing is still providing assistance and help to the authority in dealing with our, this is the projected schedule for next week, but so GW is still providing us, School of Nursing is still providing us with support for our COVID effort. And we have an opportunity to allow Karen Dawn of GW Nursing to just give us a brief synopsis of exactly what's going on. I asked her to try her best to keep it to about 5 to 8 minutes for for you to clearly understand what's been taking place with the organization and our partnership with GW. And then I'll finish up our report after she completes it. Karen? Karen, may I take you off of mute? Hold on one second.
Darren, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I was talking and unmuted, and when I had my, anyway, I'm back. So now it seems to be working, and we seem to be at the very, very top of the presentation. Okay, the goals of our projects are twofold. First is to increase our trust between people who live in DC housing and our George Washington University School of Nursing. And second, we want to improve our students' knowledge and attitudes regarding their social determinants of health in communities who have low income and under healthcare resource populations. So there's been evidence to show that a partnership between the School of Nursing and housing authorities are successful, and that's the reference here on this slide. And we have, in addition to our students being on site, we also have weekly meetings that's between DC Housing, key stakeholders, and then also faculty. We have 4 faculty members who are in attendance to these meetings. And so far, what we have done since starting in the fall of 2020 is we have students who are taking community health for their clinical and didactic learning. They actually come on site, and we have them at 2 places. We have them at headquarters and then also at Greenleaf. So we've done jumped in. The pandemic was helpful for that because we got to jump in and do our COVID symptom check. And then we also started, and we do that with employees or students and at the Greenleaf Learning Hub. And we do symptom checks and temperature checks. And then we also do have the blood pressure screenings, hypertension screenings, and education. We started with free flu vaccine administration that we offered in the fall. And this semester, just last week, we started with our pediatric nursing students, and that's really exciting. They are at the Greenleaf facility, and we've set up something, they're there on Fridays. We've set up something that they have an Ask a Nurse program, and that's filling in the gap for where the students aren't going to school and not seeing a school nurse, but we do have nurses on site. I will mention that at Greenleaf, we have our community health nurse students there are Monday through Thursday, and then our pediatric nursing students are there on Fridays. We also, in working closely with DC Housing, we've been able to, they've gotten some IT installed that'll help us at the Learning Hub communicate with the parents. So when they have questions about health, we have nurses who will be able to answer those questions right on site. And IT has been phenomenal getting that set up. So we plan to do this and run this through February and March. And we'll see how it goes. We'll reevaluate and see if we should continue during the summer. So the other thing we're doing is we're doing a community assessment, which is where our students get in, learn about the community, find out what resources are there, and we will give that information that my students collect back to our key stakeholders at DC Housing. We're doing it at three different facilities. It's Langston Terrace, Greenleaf Gardens, and Benning Terrace. And I have groups of 4 students working as a group. We've been in touch with the community navigators, and they'll also be on site learning from the residents. We have done, we will be doing the UMC COVID vaccine, which was mentioned previously. We'll be at Knox Hill, and it's in, and when I say we, our student nurses are housed at DC Housing, but we also have students who will be working on the UMC van with Dr. Erin Athey, who's a nurse practitioner. And so we'll be there with our students in tow. And so far, for the 16th of February, we've had 42 residents who've signed up for their vaccine. It'll also be offered on the 18th. And we're encouraging community navigators to also get vaccinated, to lead by example, because there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy, people who are unsure. Dr. Athey and our students actually went door to door to recruit at Knox Hill. So it's important that we get people out, lead by example. And then we'll also, I'm going to talk about what we're doing to address vaccine hesitancy. The Washington Post will also be on site next week at Knox Hill, doing a documentary on African Americans and COVID-19. And so they'll be doing interviews at that time. We have a partnership through UMC with Ask the Docs, and this is through Grapevine Health. And all of the DC Housing residents can join in on this, and it's a Zoom link. It's held every Tuesday, 6:30 to 7:30, and a lot is talked about COVID and ways to reduce people's fear about the vaccine. We have also, starting on the 17th and the 24th of this month, we'll be doing synchronous IT instruction with DC Housing residents. And I've got students working in pairs who'll be doing that instruction. We'll be covering on the 17th, we're covering emergency plans for families. And then on the 24th, we'll be doing dispelling vaccine myths. And we'll be talking about vaccines across the lifespan. So it's not just COVID, because there's been a drop off in pediatric vaccines because of the pandemic. People aren't getting into primary care. We plan to have this recordings taped, and when we talk in March, and we'll also be talking in April, our topics will be COVID safety for seniors, and we're going to repeat vaccine myths. And then we'd also have other topics that we plan to, we're polling people to see what they think is important. One of the things we're doing at GW, Dr. Athey and I are investigators on a study that looks at telehealth for DC residents. So it's what we're trying to do is assess how many people who are senior citizens over the age of 65 actually have access to telehealth. Is it utilized? Is it underutilized? How just getting an assessment of what's out there. So we thought a good time to talk to residents at DC Housing was after their vaccine, because they need to sit around for 15 minutes, and then we'd have our students actually doing the survey with the residents to see, just to get data. We do have Irb approval through this. It's we get consent at the time we're collecting the survey, and then anyone who completes the survey takes about 15 minutes, which is perfect timing after their vaccine, and they'll get a $25 CVS gift card. This is a little bit more about what's involved and questions that can be answered in a phone number. And then what do we look at in the future? Where do we hope to lead, that we hope this will lead to? So I have dates here at the top, but what we hope to do is do chronic disease and mental health screenings and education, addiction screenings, health education encompassing acute and chronic diseases, really focusing and zeroing in on health literacy, health maintenance and wellness care, care coordination, child and family health, and fall prevention for seniors and disabled populations. And then one thing we're really, really excited about is DC Housing has granted us space at headquarters, and we're working now and we're discussing signage of what teaching materials we'll have there. Ask a Nurse, it will have there 4 days a week, and then we will have vaccine storage in that same spot. And then we do continuous evaluation to see that this is effective and alter our plans as need be. So I think I covered it all. Questions?
Mr. Chair, does any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Dawn? Thank you, Dawn.
Any questions from commissioners? Karen, thanks so much for that presentation. And Tyrone, it would probably be helpful if, Mr. Director, might be helpful if we can also put that up on our website so that residents can be able to view it.
We will.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you
so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great. Mr. Executive Director, is there anything else in your report?
No, sir. I think that for the most part covers everything that I wanted to offer to the board and to the public today. Again, the full report will be uploaded as it always is each month with other information that will be pertinent to you. But most of the things I've already gone over with the board.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so we do have one member of the public that has signed up to testify on our resolutions, and that is Deborah Frazier. Ms. Frazier, if you can hear me, the floor is all yours for 5 minutes. Deborah, can you hear us? Christy and Shanita, can you identify?
Sure. Ms. Frazier, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, let's give Deborah 30 seconds and then we'll move on. Okay, so whenever she's available, we will make sure that she's able to provide her testimony.
Okay, she's here. Star 6.
Okay, great, Deborah, we can hear you. Go right ahead. Ms. Frazier? All right, so let's move ahead. So we have 3 resolutions to come before the Board of Commissioners today. They are all resolutions for approval of spending for contracts. There are 3 contracts I'm going to ask that we actually move them in block. The first is Resolution 21-01, which is a contract for the modification of elevator preventive maintenance and repairs. The second resolution is Resolution 2102, which is for HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, preventative maintenance and repair services, and water treatment services. And the third resolution is Resolution 2103, which would be to authorize the contract for firearms and fire alarms, rather, not firearms, fire alarms and security systems, preventative maintenance and repair services. And so I am going to turn this over to Laurie Bond, to our Tyrone Garrett to sort of walk us through the substance of these resolutions, and then we'll open it up for questions from our commissioners.
So commissioners, I am going to get us started. And I'm going to start out by saying I really appreciate the dialogue that we had in reference to these particular contracts. It was important for us to be able to work collectively together to come up with the appropriate resolution. Commissioner Slover, I totally, at the end, and the light bulb finally went off, I understood exactly what you were talking about that third year being used versus our average. So I appreciate you, pounding that into my head because it finally, the light bulb did go off, and I got it. So Lori Bonds, along with support from Keith Kendall PMO, are going to talk about these resolutions on our behalf, and hopefully we've come to a clear consensus of exactly how we should proceed appropriately. So Lori, please begin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Lori Bonds, Vice President, Office of Administrative Services. Again, as Chairman Albert indicated, all 3 resolutions are coming before you as the board to request an extension or an additional contract modification for all 3 of these services. All 3 are set to expire. And again, the first is for elevator preventive maintenance and repair services. And as a result, we're asking for an additional year in order for us to be able to presume or move forward with, again, services for our properties and for the residents. That would be an amount of $413,186 for that contract modification. Again, ideally, our goal is to be able to solicit prior than the year so that we would have a competition and new contracts for those services prior to that time. With regard to, again, the service is with Collins Elevator. They are CBE located here in the district. As far as the Section 3 compliance, they have satisfactorily achieved this goal. They participated in an elevator workshop with residents there and ready to move forward again with the process to be able to assist residents with being a part of the elevator union. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Please indicate in the chat. Great. And so if there are no questions, there is a question from Commissioner Slover. Commissioner Slover?
So, Neil, I think we're having issues with unlocking the
There we
mute
go.
individuals.
Okay, we can hear Commissioner Slover.
It's just so you know, everybody's locked. It's hard to get unlocked. So I assume these are going to be all. The one question I had is, does this encompass, these contracts encompass all of real estate, or is this our public housing facilities?
These are just our public housing properties.
I think Commissioner Slover froze. I know Commissioner Von Gossery has a question.
Sure.
Commissioner Von Gossery?
So there's this.
Hey, Bill, you're freezing.
My question,
Go ahead, Aquarius.
my question is about the contract. Is basically some of the conversation we had in the brown bag about the contract. One thing about the elevator contract is, do we ever have any union employees on this contract? And if not, why not? And if there's been any apprentices with this company, for us to know who, I mean, you may not by name, but you know, who were the apprentices under the Section 3. And then I want to get for the record the formula in which we discussed when we saw that there was a discrepancy within the way the formula was done based on the communication and compliance or how it was done. I think it's important to get on the record, Mr. Chair.
So with regard
Lori, do you want to respond?
Sure. With regard to the last question, Commissioner Van Gossery, the again, the amount that we're proposing as far as the additional year for the contract modification is based on the actual spend of the 3-year contract and the average of that. Again, ideally, we're not anticipating needing that total amount, but it is based on the actual spend of the last 3 years, the average of that. With regard to your question on the Section 3 participation, I would like to defer to Brian Harris, who is the Vice President of Office of Resident Services, to be able to speak to, again, what the previous commitments were and individuals who have been part of any elevator unions or any and the elevator contract.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioner. This is Sandra Littles. I will speak to that. Prior to, there aren't any current employees, Section 3 employees with the elevator union. Prior to COVID, they came to the center, the Southwest Family Enhancement Center, and did a presentation. And they were supposed to, at that time, bring on Section 3 residents. However, at the time of the meeting, COVID hit. So we had that, we had a big pause in that. And so just here recently, I reconvened with the contractors, and they are ready to resume what they started prior to COVID.
Additional questions from commissioners? I know Brian is trying to speak, but somebody has to unmute him. Brian, try again. Christy and Shanita, if you guys can figure this system out so we can have a smooth meeting, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we're working on it.
Yeah. You may have to unmute everyone and then just ask people to mute themselves.
Thank you, Chair Neal. I appreciate that, Chair Albert.
And
so, thank you. So to follow up on your question, Commissioner Van Gosfrey, kind of what Ms. Littles was saying, pre-COVID, they were working. They actually did a workshop as it relates to the union. So the biggest thing there is that once within the commitment, once they hire a person, they have to become a part of the union. And so that's the piece that we weren't able to drive home due to COVID. So we, as Ms. Littles mentioned, we are in direct communication with them now. And so we're following up as it relates to making sure that anyone that's hired based upon their Section 3 commitment actually can become unionized so they can further their career with with Collins Elevator.
And Brian, I have another question now. With us trying to recruit stakeholders, are we trying to also recruit stakeholders who would train our residents to do elevators and ACV and air conditions, other than through UDC and other than DOE?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we reaching out to groups like Tom, who rebranded her organization, but she's still as an independent contractor, I think, with DOE, where she's still independently recruiting throughout all wards of the city, training residents, and especially targeting females with non-traditional male occupation. And have we touched wild opportunities for women to see whether or not they're still recruiting women for non-traditional jobs? Have we gone to that point yet, or is that still on the table, a part of our planning trying to get there?
Right. So that's great insight. So we're constantly to look outside of the box as it relates to what we call the private sector, right? And so always looking to infuse. We've done some things with Building Futures as it relates to a construction standpoint with AFL-CIO, and so moving that initiative, but that's just tied to construction. So always looking at it from a private sector to move our residents to that portion of it. Yes, ma'am. So we are on the table working towards those as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Aquarius. Keith, this is a question for you. So during our earlier session with the Board of Commissioners, we decided to change the amount of each of these contracts to reflect the average of over the last 3 years, plus an inflationary amount. Just for the record, can you, for all of the 3 contract extensions that we're going to be voting on today, say what the amount of those extensions are?
Ken, if you can give me one quick second and I'll pull it right up.
Sure. Bill, you cut out a lot during your last question. Do you want to repeat that question?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. So just for folks looking on at home or on this call or on Facebook, during our earlier conversations, the Board of Commissioners thought the amount of the extension did not reflect the spending rates in the prior 3 years. And so we requested the staff to make an adjustment to the contract extension amounts to reflect that. So share that amount with us.
Mr. Albert, I have those amounts.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, for the elevator contract, the new amount is $413,186. For the fire alarm contract, the new amount is $586,420. And for the HVAC contract, the new amount is $1,286,900. $690,436.
Thank you so much, Keith. We appreciate that. Are there any further questions on any of these three resolutions?
Keith, I only have one question. That's with the warranties, with the HCVP, all three of the resolutions. Now, whether or not COVID-19 has impact any of the warranties?
No, ma'am, it doesn't impact the warranties at all. Any repairs that are made, the materials are warranted for a period of 1 year, and the labor is warranted for a period of 30 days.
So within these contracts and looking at the trends, is there a possibility that we can extend our warranties more than 1 year? Because it seems as though one of the weaknesses we have is the warranties run out and then the problem begins.
Actually,
where we could say instead of giving us a 1 year warranty that we want a 3 year warranty or 4 year warranty?
Actually, Madam Commissioner, on our expensive equipment, such as boilers or the large chillers, air conditioners, we actually do extend the warranties for a period up to 5 years. Now, those are parts warranties. The labor still has to be paid for.
Commissioner Slover?
Yeah, the question I think I was trying to ask before is why we don't have a singular contract for all of our HVAC needs, all of the three service areas that we're approving here. Why would we have separate contracts for our traditional public housing facilities versus other facilities that we have? Is it a funding thing?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, 1133, our headquarters and other buildings that we may have, why are they not included in this contract?
Actually, 1133 is included.
Well, that's what I asked. I asked earlier. I said very specifically, is this just our traditional public housing? And the answer was yes.
No, it also includes 1133, Commissioner.
1133.
Okay, well, that's it.
I know. Lori did say traditional.
It includes our property as well as our headquarters.
Could we get a breakout at a different time as to where the money's going towards?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on these resolutions? All right, so hearing none other, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2101, 2102, and 2103. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. McNair, I don't see you, but I'm assuming that you're on. Ms. McNair is the secretary of our board. I'm going to ask her to do a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Falchecchia?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Talaferro?
Present.
I'm asking for your vote, sir. We're voting on resolutions 2101, 02, and 03. Are you there, Commissioner Talaferro?
Yes, I'm here. I say yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Slover?
Yes, as amended from the from what's in the board book.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Gostre?
Yes, as amended in the recorded records from the Board of Commissioners Brown Bag meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz-Gow.
Yes, with a hard commitment of section 3 after it. And I vote yes.
Thank you. And Chairman Albert.
Did you call Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes, I called her second. Her vote.
Okay. Okay. Yes, with the amendments that we discussed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeses. The resolutions are approved as amended for resolutions 101, 02, and 03.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. Thank you, McNair. So now we're going to go into our public comment section. So if you are a resident, we're allotting you 5 minutes. If you're a non-resident, we're allotting you 3 minutes, as we always do. Ms. McNair is the timekeeper. We do have lots of people signed up today, so I'm just going to ask that you adhere to the time limitations. And as soon as you hear that sun go off, we're going to ask you to stop talking. If we can get Ms. Frazier on again. Deborah Frazier, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hey, Deborah, go right ahead.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, this is public comment. I have a few comments. First one is systems are broken. The inspection system is broken. Took me 4 months to get an inspector, to contact an inspector at DCHA. For 4 months. I'm not the only one having that problem. This inspection backlog is affecting Lisa and other residents as well. But thanks to the great patience and support of Inspector Clifford Sherrod III, I was able, after 6 weeks, to get the property to remit my address my issue. So there's a problem in that system. When the resolution was passed in the fall to bring on additional inspectors and to do virtual inspections, it was supposed to correct the backlog of inspections that residents are experiencing. That's not happening. By my experience and about 10 other people that I have shared with, the backlog is not being addressed. Second system trouble is what's happening right now. As I approach and others approach the attending how to sign in on the Board of Commissioners calls. That is always a challenge. I've talked to several silos. Nobody knew where the resolutions were. I couldn't get any designated staff online to tell me how to sign up. The other trouble is the missive about when to sign up. Some staff says it's 42 hours in advance. Some staff says it's 76 hours in advance. Some staff say it's 24 hours in advance. That needs to be clear. So I think I'm not the only one having that problem, but it's a systems problem, how to log on, what are the secret numbers for the Board of Commissioners meeting. The process, as we engage residents, especially by phone, it should be open and clear and transparent and not a trip down Wonderland. Wonder where the minutes are. Wonder what secret codes I'm going to call in. Wonder where I can get the resolution. Wonder who's going to answer my call. Because of the diligent and wonderful support of Barbara Oot and OCP, I was able to engage this. Nobody else, well, there were other signers who were able to help me, but it was too difficult. So systems change. One, the backlog, continued backlog with inspections. Two, the challenges from getting on the Board of Commissioners meeting. Can you please straighten that out? And thirdly, the senior building, from our understanding, Caper Seniors is still only half full. By residents' report, community residents, we are having the same problems we had when at the old senior building. One, on the first floor in the lounge and the community room, bathrooms are not being cleaned regularly. Second, the floors are not being swept. And third, security is intermittent at best. As Caper residents, we always want to stand to advocate for others because we had the same problem with Capers and when we were there. So can we please look into this and not have a repeat of poor property management. That was an issue at the previous senior building, and we don't want that to be an issue here. So first, kudos to all the staff that make it work. Jose Sousa, who's gone, Mr. Sharon, and Barbara O.T., they're the ones that keep this thing going. Directors come and go, but we need to give a shout out. I want to give appreciation for all the people that work for us residents and get it done. And please look into correcting these systems that make it difficult for residents to engage and get services. Thank you.
So Deborah, this is Neil. Ms. Fraser, this is Neil. We do have a replacement for Jose Sousa. His name
Somebody
is.
needs to mute him. I can't hear.
Yeah. So if you mute, you can mute Deborah, and so you can still.
Okay. I'm muting now.
So I'm going to ask Tony Robinson, who replaced Jose Sousa, to reach out to you after this meeting to clarify how you are able to access this meeting and any other meetings of the Board of Commissioners. Clarify that, but also, and I appreciate the compliment you paid to Mr. Sousa, well deserved. Tony also has a rich history of public and customer service here in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure you'll find him just as helpful as Jose was. So Tony will reach out to you after this meeting.
Mr. Can I say something, please?
Yes, you can.
Ms. Fraser, this is Commissioner Talaferro. I've been asking Garrett, people in housing, more than once about the inspections of the properties of cleanliness, and to me, it's not being done. And the way you brought it to me today, I'm a little upset right now because they're always talking about the virus, this needs to be clean, but it's not being done. And then
right.
I've seen it. I have seen it. And she is telling the truth. And now I'm upset because I've been asking nicely DCHA about the cleaning and inspections of these buildings, and y'all don't do nothing. Now I'm upset. So I'm going to leave it like that right now.
So Commissioner Talaferro, so this is Neil again, and you do share with me on a regular basis, almost on a daily basis, the concerns about the cleanliness of the buildings. You also share that with Executive Director Garrett. I can tell you, over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, you and I have walked a number of these properties with Mr. Garrett. You are there more frequently than I am, but there has been improvements. Is there room for more improvements? Absolutely, but I just want to make sure that Mr. Garrett and his team know that we recognize that the steps that they're taking. We know there's still a long way to go. So when we make these comments, it's not meant to discourage or to not appreciate the efforts that you're taking. But just to remind you that there is still a whole lot more room for improvement. Mr. Garrett, I know you were about to say something.
Yeah, commissioners, what we require on a daily basis is that the staff take pictures of their efforts and their work. So what I threw up as a screen was a property that Commissioner Talaferro brought to my attention this morning, saying that he received complaints. So I wanted to see the pictures of what we did in cleaning that building yesterday and today. So I'm not sure when he received the actual complaint, but these are the pictures that are taken on a daily basis that I threw up and shared the screen. So we do this every day. And I just want you to know, so if anyone has any complaints about a particular building, this is how I identify and find out exactly what took place. So if you have any specific things that you want to share, please send them over to me and I'll investigate it. But this is the building, Commissioners Talaferro, that you referenced this morning. And I had these pictures taken and sent over to me.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Garrett. All right, so let's continue moving on. And if you're speaking, please mute your device.
Chairman Neal, this is Carolyn Punter. I wanted to comment about a backlog of inspections, if that's possible.
You can comment on anything you want to.
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Punter, the Senior Vice President of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So there's not a backlog of HQS inspections. And actually, we've conducted 2,186 inspections since the beginning of the fiscal year. As it relates to mold inspections, when I heard Clifford Sherrod's name, he conducts mold inspections, but that's not a HCVP function. That's from our Office of Audit and Compliance. But again, our inspections, we do not have a backlog. I just wanted to say that for the record.
Thanks so much, Carolyn, for clarifying the record. Next on the agenda is Wanda Davis. Wanda Davis.
Yes, this is Wanda Davis speaking. I'm calling
Right ahead.
today. Hello.
Yes, you may go ahead.
Okay, my concerns are I live on the Montana Avenue property. I've been living here for 7.5 years, and out of the 7.5 years I've been here, I've had to deal with sewer water every year, 2 or 3 times out the year. And it has destroyed some things in my house. Nobody's going to replace it, as I've been told. Also, as a unit next door to where I live at, has the young lady that was living there moved out. I reported it to housing, to the management's office, and the weeping of the weed coming over in my house. It's a 3-unit. I live in a house and it has 3 floors, and it weeps from the bottom to the top. And I'm an asthmatic. I called the office and reported it to Miss Williams on the 7th of January. Don't you know, it took from the 7th of January to today, them dragging their feet to get this problem solved. And today they just boarded it up. But in the meantime, I've had to deal with that weed smoking each and every day, where they're going in and out of there like it's a revolving door. Down with all the other issues that's going on up here on this property that has been going on, even mentioned it to the police officer that is residing next door, telling me that there's nothing that could be done because their hands are tied, and if something they see that goes on, if they're off duty, they cannot do anything. They have to call the police. My thing of it is, why do you have them next door? The other thing with this drug trafficking, every day, all these cars up here that don't even reside on this property. I never see housing police up here at all. Now, it took me some time. I reached out to Chief Moppet, his deputy, Chief Dixon, and another young gentleman that told me to call 911, close my vent. They didn't tell me that, but the management office made suggestions. If I close my vents off, that means that I'm not going to get any heat. So those are my concerns, and I wish that you all would do something about it because it's going on every day.
Yeah.
What property, what property you from?
Montana Terrace.
Question. I want to know if Commissioner Fatecchio can answer this. The sewer, is the sewer a DCHA problem or is it a city problem? Have that been clarified?
Aquarius, before Mr. Falchecchio answers that question, I just want to, Ms. Davis, to let you know that we're hearing your concerns. I want to ask our executive director to just briefly address what he's heard. And I know you guys have already probably engaged with Ms. Davis, but what can she expect going forward?
I can contact, well, I have Director Larry Williams on, Commissioner, and you know what I want to do? I know we don't do this very often, allow the directors to directly dialogue with residents when they make these type of complaints, but I need, in this particular instance, I need you to know exactly what we're doing on behalf of our residents. I don't want anyone to think that their concerns go unnoticed and unheard in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to allow Mr. Williams to respond along with Brandy Lynch, and possibly the area manager for that site.
Okay, very succinctly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. The particular unit that the resident is complaining about, we have to get legal possession of the unit in order to go in and board it up. And we just received legal possession as of yesterday. So we went and boarded the unit up on yesterday. Now the complaint as it relates to the weed smoking, the unit was vacant, so there was no one living in the unit. And we have done some knocks and checks to talk to residents about, illegal drug use. But in any event, from that particular unit, the unit has been boarded up. There's no one living in the unit. As it relates to the sewage backup, I just ran her address. There's nothing in yard that shows that there is an issue there. I will follow up with the resident to ensure that we address it.
Well, and then can we go out? Can somebody go out and check it out?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then Commissioner Von Gosry as to whether or not the sewer is DCHA's problem or DC government problem. I don't know the answer to that, and Commissioner Falchecchio can respond to that, but I think he had to drop off momentarily.
So, Mr. Chair, we'll check it out to see whether or not it's on our side first.
Great.
We'll be able to respond back to the full board.
Great. Thanks, Director. Thanks, Ms. Davis. Next is Ms. Shanta Hai. Ms. Hai.
Just a moment, I'm coming. Okay. Thank you all. Just a moment here. Good day, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to speak on a few of the following issues as it relates to Park Morton. Number one, I submitted an email to Director Tyrone Garrett a few weeks ago asking 14 questions related to the redevelopment of Park Morton with follow-up questions about Greenleaf coming from interested parties. Not a single question has been answered. He also tried to submit a document to me that was irrelevant, to which many of the people on the said document are no longer in their respective positions. Another member is deceased and the whereabouts of the others is currently unknown. The document needs to be updated before I will consider the matter closed. What is the exact demolition date for Park Morton? 3, why is there a lack of communication with me still? 4, why are residents who applied to receive a voucher not receiving them while others are being forced to apply when they would prefer to stay at Park Morton? 5, when will DCHA be applying for a new demolition/disposition application and PUDs to start construction at the footprint? The original PUDs and demolition disposition application stated that Bruce Monroe will be phase 1. Now that DCHA is using my Park Morton equity plan as the blueprint to move the construction forward, the new PUDs and demolition disposition application should be required, as well as the raise permit. If this information is incorrect, please correct me so that I am made fair. Thank you. And number 6, what is the rush now to push families out of Park Morton when this project has been delayed for decades already? Number 7, why are DCHA maintenance workers salvaging old air conditioners from the previous units of residents, former residents, to sell for scrap metal? Why are windows and other things being salvaged from Park Morton? And I'm the only person noticing. Well, not the only person, but I'm the only person speaking on it. Why? Also, I will be remaining at Park Morton in my original unit until such time DCHA can give me the exact dates of the demolition, can relocate the resident council office and community room, as we were not supposed to lose any amenity spaces,
Also effectuate contracts for my company High Alert Emergency Preparedness to do my emergency preparedness trainings at all 52 DCHA properties as stated to me by Mr. Brian Harris in 2017, which is 4 years ago now, so that I may move my family into self-sufficiency to prepare for home ownership. And lastly, I submitted a draft resolution that I would have liked to have had on the agenda today. I need your response to that resolution. In short, if you want me gone off of Park Morton, please give me the opportunity and the money that you owe me so that I can get up out of this hellhole that y'all created and oppressed me in for decades. I've been struggling long enough now, and I've been here. I've been giving y'all more than enough options to help me, help you, help myself. Okay. So, but y'all won't do that. So with that, I'll leave this in closing. And this is why y'all are having to fight with my stubbornness right now. So I'm going to leave y'all with these scriptures as I close. Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. Psalms 34:19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for the good, for those who are called according to his purpose. I am Ms. Shante High, the president of the council at Park Morton. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Ms. High, for your time today. There is a lot to unpack there. Director Garrett, I am going to recommend that we set up a meeting with Ms. High over the next couple of weeks to address all of the issues that she's raised today. And with your permission, I would like to participate in that meeting.
Not a problem. We can do that.
Great.
Also, Mr. Chair, just one question. Did you want me to circulate my response that I sent on the 29th to the full board?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay, I will.
Great. Next up is
like the questions that I asked.
Neil.
I would like to participate in that meeting as well.
Yes, whoever from the board would like to participate is welcome to participate.
I have a question, and that is...
Well, 1 second, Aquarius. We're running order. I know Commissioner Slover had a question.
Mine was similar to Commissioner Hoffman's, and I think one of the things that could be helpful leading into that meeting is a pretty detailed analysis of where we are in the Park Morton development and what our timelines are today. Would just set that. I think would help set the stage for a more meaningful dialogue.
Right. So we should probably do a pre-meeting and then the meeting with Ms. High. So yes, we'll make that happen. Commissioner Bangazari.
And what I want, and Tyrone, you do not have to answer now, but you can put this into consideration when you have that meeting. If the allegation is that the employees are selling scrap material, the proper name for that is called gleaming. So if in the past, DCHA under many other directors, they did do gleaming. So if we are doing gleaming, why are the employees getting the scrap doing the metal and they're keeping the money? Why is not the resident council where the scraps is being done and the money is being placed into the resident council? So if gleaming is going on any of the properties of DCHA, and if the gleaming is being monetary attachment, then I'm recommending that the gleaming proceeds are to go to the resident council of that community and not the employees or DCHA.
I will look into it, Commissioner Osprey.
Consideration of the economics where it will go to the resident council, not DCHA or any of its subsidiaries.
So Commissioner Van Gosri, I'm going to look into it. because I don't know anything about our employees keeping.
Okay, but I'm also adding to that is if not, that is a good situation to let's look into gleaming and allow it to be gleamed and allow the proceeds to go to the resident council if we can still do gleaming.
I agree with
Correct.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Paulette Matthews. Miss Matthews.
Well, I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. I'm actually on the phone to one more time ask Mr. Gerd in reference to any updates that he might possibly have where or when to this day what's going on with Berry Farms.
So I have
That's just one of my questions.
So do you want to ask all of them, or do you want me to?
Yeah, why don't you ask all the questions and then we'll respond.
I want you to ask all of them because I've been asking a few for some time now. So if you can give me an answer to one of them, will be satisfying for me.
Okay, so we're still so commissioners and Ms. Matthews, thank you for your question. We're still continuing with the process of Berry Farm. We're at the point of preparing for infrastructure. Now I have both Andre and Sentil Sankran, the director of the department, who can go into further detail if you want us to. But Sentil or Andre, do you want to give us the pinpoint of current day to day where we are with Barry?
Sure. I'll yield to Andre for the details, but Andre, if you could talk about infrastructure work and infrastructure and demolition work that's taken place and that is continuing to take place, and an anticipated closing on the first phase of the construction that will take place on the site.
Sure, I can do that. We're at the point now, since the end of the year, where mission has been completed. We also anticipate that we're towards the closing for the first senior building, phase one. A senior building of a total of 108 units. And then to underwrite the gap for that first building, and hopefully we can move towards this. We'll continue to update the residents, the monthly newsletter to all the residents provides an update, and we'll also come out as well virtual meeting at the end of March. We'll provide details of where we are with the project and the projected timeline.
And Andre, can you just add one other item about the infrastructure work?
The infrastructure work that's currently started right at the end of last year is to support the first phases of Berry Farm along Sumner Road, which will include site utilities, new streets, the new street along Sumner Road, to provide access in and out for those first two phases. Has begun already.
Who actually owns Berry Farms property? Is it the government? I mean, who owns the TOA? What type of who owns the land? Who owns the buildings? That type of thing. And who owns the ground lease?
The ground lease is controlled by the housing authority, ma'am.
Ground lease is held by the housing authority.
Yes,
okay. Does TOA have any ownership of anything other than putting up the redevelopment, the housing structure, or whatever?
So TOA, and they will be the managing partner of the structures that are being built. That's how it's being proposed currently.
Okay. Well, is there any way, I'm just asking everybody, the housing authority and also the board, where as though an update can be put into, like, y'all do the resolution about Berry Farms or any other development project that's going on or taking place? Because as we sit here and we go through all of this each and every month or year by year, we see where there's a lot of problems that have taken place, and somehow or another we still haven't figured out how to resolve them. But yet we're so quick to call people to move out of their residence and then try to, find a stable place to be where I guess no one is really, stable. My son trying to page me. But anyway, so I got thrown off a little bit. That would be nice. And also, Chief Market, just like y'all have the monthly meetings, he should give a monthly report of what's going on in every community. I've felt that way for a long time. This is not the first time that I have mentioned that. That might need to be something that y'all consider. And if we ever get to the point
Matthew,
that we can do...
Ms. Matthews, can you wrap it up? Your time is up. Can you conclude? No, you want to finish your thought?
I have one question, please, and thank you.
Okay, great.
Their time was my time, too. But anyway, far-wise, as the D.C. Housing Authority, are they still on emergency, so they're not fixing nothing but emergency?
So, Tara, you want to answer that question quickly so we can get to our other guests?
No, actually, we're moving towards coming back into full circulation of dealing with work orders. We just try to make sure that everyone is safe when we do so.
Great.
When? Because it's about, I have stuff since 2019.
Okay,
so you don't have a date in mind?
So I'll have Mr. Williams look into your work order request and find out what's still outstanding for you.
Ms. Hightower already sent it to the appropriate people, but nothing has been done. When I spoke with her last week, that's when she told me that y'all was still in the emergency mode. So I thought that's why I would ask the question of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Next is Ms. Peggy Driscoll. This row.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, my name is Peggy Driscoll, and I'm just coming on board about Ontario apartments. And these are the questions that I would like to ask. I tried to send them in the chat. I don't know if all the commissioners received it, if it actually goes to them or not. Could you answer that question for me? If they did get it, the questions?
I didn't see them in the chat.
I don't know. Am I able to send it, or I'm not able to?
You are.
If you send it to one of us, we can circulate it to the rest of the group.
Okay, I'll do that then. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just say my questions real quick because I know I have 5 minutes. Just for the record, and I'm asking that this does be put on the record and that I be provided a transcript of my communication. Thank you. Okay, the first one is, when will the next meeting about land development happen? The last meeting we had 2. The last one was in September. There's been no communication about anything since September, although they said that they would be communicating to us several things and questions that we asked. Someone called me today from the management office on the day that I'm coming on here, but before that we hadn't heard anything. What's the timeline for the relocation? How long will the residents have to prepare to relocate from their homes? How long will residents be away from their homes? When we had the Zoom meeting, they said no more than 45 days. And I said, are you sure? They said, most definitely. Everything will be completed. It will not take longer than 45 days. Okay, and then where the residents going to be relocated to? This is one of my questions, mainly because ever since I had the fire, I developed PTSD. I have to go to the doctor regularly, which is only 2 blocks away, and I have a lung problem. I have to do this treatment sometimes, and so being here in this area is very important to me, and also to a couple of other residents. Well, we have a choice on where we can go. can all residents be transferred? We only have 9 to 10 residents here. I don't know, when I asked at the meeting, they said, we don't know what we have available right now. We don't know where they're gonna go. And how will DCHA communicate with residents once they are relocated? What if a resident wants to stay in the building? The reason why I ask that is because the things that they're renovating doesn't require a person to really be out of the building. It doesn't seem, everybody seems to agree with that. There's vacant places in here that if somebody really has some complications, handicap, they can just move to that apartment. This is what I'm thinking. It's just an idea. And then once theirs is finished, they move right back in instead of moving everything out and moving everything in. There's a lot of seniors here. There's handicaps. Some people can't walk that good. And also that would be cost effective if that can happen. What if a resident, okay, there are several empty units, I said that the scope of work that was explained to us does not see the merit relocation. Okay, I would like to know if you can tell me who is the principal owner. Because at that Zoom meeting, we were asking, it's like nobody knew who the partner was, who are they in partnership with, who is the principal owner.
So I'm hoping that Tyrone and his team, or Mr. Garrett and his team, are taking notes. We have like 4 other people signed up to talk about Malvo. So if you can ask your questions, and then we'll go to the other residents who signed up, and then we'll have Mr. Garrett and his team just answer everyone's questions at one time. Does that work for you?
Yes, Mr. Albert. How much time do I have left so I can stay on point? Do I have 2 minutes?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay. Once then, what they say?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Blessings. Then, whoever the principal owner is, which has not been revealed, they said they didn't know. So I don't know how you can be in partnership if you don't know who the principal owner is. And once that whole process over, who will we report to for repairs, for rent, and everything? And I would like to just say that I find this process kind of, and I'm not just saying this, it's the way you feel, degrading in a way, because it's almost made me feel like, you know how people can a lot of times be stereotyped because they're in public housing, but there's real diamonds in the rough in public housing that, and sometimes I feel like even the people who work there stereotyped, because all we want is for you to treat us, we was your mother, we were your, it's your father, it's your daughter, it's your son. If they would had to go through this, how would you treat them? Would you give them information on time so they can feel the stress level could be lower, so they can, you know what I'm saying? And so the reason why people are hesitant, and we would like to have, and the main thing is we would like to have all the promises in writing, in a letter, because, and people feel so strongly this way, and because of the experiences that they've had with public housing, like I almost lost my life. And when I was in the hospital, nobody came to check on me. I was told I had to leave the hotel in 3 weeks. But I was displaced for about 5 months. Nobody even checked with me to see if I had shelter. So it's all these kind of things. And one lady in the building, I think one of her children died when she was at her last place. It's these kind of things that people want reassurance.
Yeah. So Ms. Disrow, let me get your other colleagues an opportunity to speak, and I'm going to have Mr. Garrett and his team respond. Does that work?
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Mrs. Wright? I don't know your first name. Do we have a Mrs. Wright? Okay, well, let's move to Ebony Williams. Either Mrs. Wright or Ebony Williams. Or do we have Heather Day? I have to believe they're on and having trouble connecting.
There's one lady I know really wanted to speak, and I don't know what's going on. If you like, or if it doesn't matter to you, I could just knock on the door real quick to see if there's a problem.
Sure. There's Mrs. Wright, there's Tiffany Williams, and then there's Heather Day. Please wear a mask as you go out the door.
Thank you. I'm gonna do that right now. It'll only take me like 30 seconds.
Mr. Chair, did you want me to start responding or you want me to wait?
Let's give her a minute. But in the meantime, let's move on to Mr. Therese Belt, and then we'll come back to the Malvo Brad conversation. Ms. Belt,
Yes.
go right ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to know, are there any plans for the historic buildings that's at Berry Farm? Or what is the plans for those buildings? Do we have any?
Mr. Garrett? Mr. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard the question. I'm sorry. At this time, we're still discussing with our development partner, POA, is how to address those. Remember, what's being requested of those units is that they actually be preserved. So that has to be worked into the fabric of the overall redevelopment project itself. So that's as much as I have right now. We know that based on the ruling, we cannot touch those buildings. Those buildings have to be preserved. So that's where we are right now.
And then,
Mr. Garrett, when would you
Andre,
have more clarity that you can share with the community?
I'm sorry. You got me.
When would you have more clarity about the disposition of the buildings that you can share with the community?
Santa, were you going to answer that?
No, I was going to address something else first, but I mean, Andre might be able to speak a little bit more detailed. But what I was going to say is that, Andre, if you want to share.
I wasn't looking for details.
I'm back. This Ms. Disher, I'm back.
Yeah, hold 1 second, Ms. Disher. We're going to get right back to you. But there was a question about Berry Farm and the historic buildings, and so I was just trying to get clarification as to what will happen.
Sure, we can come back with that, Chairman Albert. The one piece that I would ask Andre to fill in right now is kind of what protections have been made already in order to ensure those buildings are protected, like fencing and boarding. If you want to, Andre, do you want to just briefly say what has been done already by our development partner?
Yeah, and what you said was the big part of it, that there's been fencing, and the units have been boarded up, and they also, the roofs have been replaced so that they can be preserved until we get to the point where we actually put together a design on how to put them back in full use when the project gets to that point.
Okay.
And Andre, given the location of the site, just a high level of the preserved portions, which phase of development does that fall into? It's one of the later phases, correct?
Correct. That's one of the last phases.
Okay. So I'm also going to recommend, like we did for Park Morton, that you guys provide the board with a briefing update on Berry Farm sooner rather than later. But preferably soon after the briefing on Park Morton.
So,
Commissioner Slover.
Can I add something to that? I was gonna ask the same thing, but it seems like every month we have a lot of questions about the same projects and we don't have a lot of good answers. The answers are what they are. I think what we need is a living, updated sort of project timeline progress report that's available, so that some of these questions can be sought out and answered through that document. And that would be very helpful to the board as well. Something I think we've all been asking for a long time. I know these projects are complicated, but we need to get a handle on where things are and put out realistic timelines so that people understand what we're talking about. If you just listen to what we talked about earlier, phase one won't even be constructed, in a perfect world, won't be starting until next year. And that's just phase one. So we need to start,
getting a more realistic timeline and dialogue going about these projects. And that starts with finding out where we are.
Yeah, I would underscore that, Commissioner Slover. So not just the board needs a realistic timeline. I think the communities, particularly the communities that are impacted, really need a realistic timeline so they can plan accordingly. So thank you, Senthil. Thank you, Andre. Thank you so much, Ms. Belt, for raising that issue. So let's go back to Melville, Rad. Mr. Garrett, and I know Senthil and Andre are probably going to be part of this. So can you bring Ms. Disrow and whoever else is on the call up to speed on Melville, Rad?
Okay, I
hope you guys were taking notes as you were speaking, hoping that you can address our specific concerns that were raised.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would ask
things that I can address up front, and that's the ownership of the property of Melvo of this endeavor will be owned by DCHA. There is no other owner, quote unquote, for this particular property. And as far as who the management agent is going to be, it still will continue to be DCHA. So I think, well, those issues right up front, commissioners, and for the members of the public who are on, the properties will be owned by the DCHA and or it's one of its subsidiary. In addition, one of the DCHA and or subsidiary of DCHA, wholly owned subsidiary, will be managing the property on a daily basis.
Thank you, Director Garrett. I would ask Andre and Alex to, again, just give a high level of our engagement. I actually truly appreciate the questions and concerns of the resident, and I think it'll be helpful to understand what our planned engagement is. I believe we have some meetings that are being scheduled currently, and talking a little bit about how we plan to move forward. But and then also to the resident's question about putting these in writing, I think the best way to do so is to actually document all of these, and we can respond in writing to the questions that she's posed.
Yeah. This is Alex. This is Alex. I agree with you. I think we should get everything written down and then respond. I'd also like to say that we received questions from Empower DC last a couple days ago, and we have those also in the works. We're going to be meeting tomorrow as a group to review our draft responses for those. Some of those questions are similar to the questions already asked in this call. Since the Empower DC came in, we have been huddling to come up with a game plan going forward. Our first round of meetings, we're targeting the week of March 1st as a follow-up meeting for Melville. And we're looking at either the 3rd or 4th of March, maybe both days. We might do an afternoon meeting one day and an evening meeting the next day. So that's where we are right now.
So guys, I really don't agree with you that everything needs to be in writing. I mean, there's a reason we have these in other public forums. And so, yes, well, I would encourage folks to, if they have specific questions, to put them in writing so that you guys can respond timely. I just want to, for folks who are paying attention here, to not be discouraged from raising your concerns at this forum.
No, that wasn't the point of our comment. I don't think it was to say we don't want to answer the questions or that we don't want people to ask them in the forum. It's more just to make sure that, there were a lot of questions embedded in that first testimony. There will probably be a lot of questions similar and different in the person's testimony. We want to make sure we get a comprehensive list. And I was trying to write as fast as I can, but I wouldn't claim that I caught everything. So it would be good for us to have a comprehensive, transcript. We will get that with the meeting minutes when they get drafted.
So when is the next community meeting on Melville?
We're targeting March 3rd or 4th or both. It might be an afternoon meeting in one of those days and an evening meeting follow up on the other day.
Can you just make sure that commissioners who are available and want to sit in and listen in also get an invitation?
Absolutely.
And commissioners, we're going to treat that meeting the same way we've treated the previous meetings. We're also going to have a recording that will be able to be uploaded. So if you don't make it that particular day, you will be able to go back and view the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
And can I just say something real quick? We are finalizing our community engagement plan. That's one of the reasons you all brought me in, to help improve communication with the development projects and with the residents in general. So that'll be coming out hopefully very soon. And hopefully some of these questions get answered in a more strategic and timely manner. So we'll hope to have that together very soon.
So Tony, I appreciate that. And you're new. For those of you who don't know, Tony Robinson is new in the communications department. I think part of the struggle that we've had both as commissioners and as residents is the real gaps that occur between communications on specific property issues. So if you can find a way to kind of shorten that time frame, it will go a long way for both commissioners and residents. So I am counting on you, no pressure, to make that happen.
Yes, sir.
Great. And so the next Malibu meeting will be on the 3rd or 4th of March, is what people are saying, what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, so when are you going to know for sure? And how much notice are you going to give the community?
Good question. So I in anticipation of the board meeting today, I went ahead and asked that we settle on one or both of those days at our meeting tomorrow. So by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll know for sure. And then we'll have the flyer printed up and the announcement put out so that we can confirm those dates and times by the end of the week.
Okay, great. We appreciate that. So Ms. Disrow, please share that information with your colleagues in the building and look out for the invitation for the upcoming meeting so that you can have all of your questions answered.
Okay, that would be great.
Great, thanks all. So next up is the Patricia Malloy. Ms. Malloy, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Director Garrett. My name is Patricia Malloy. I'm the Lincoln Heights Resident Council President.
That's what Jahi.
Listening to the Commissioner Slover, Director Albert, and Mr. Robinson. I had a meeting with Office of Planning and Development with the Housing Authority. Obviously, you all must have been reading my mind. I was reading your mind. Those are the questions that I asked them to bring back to me. But today I wasn't here to speak on that, but I'm glad that we are all on the same page as far as the communication, as far as doing a time frame for these developments. As you all know, Lincoln Heights is a new community property. I would like to find out why and when, within the next 3 to 4 months, the residents of Lincoln Heights will be relocated to our off-site development, the Strand and the Providence Place. My concern is our rental office is only open, say 2-3 days a week. Right now, we need our rental office to be open at least 4 days a week so that the residents can get their affairs in order if they choose to. We have 2 HMAs. Residents have been coming to me in regards to these have certain concerns is if the HMA is not in, I don't see why that HMA can't wait on the resident, regardless of whether it's their resident or not. Some of our residents come to the office on their lunch hour to be told you have to come back the next day when your HMA is in. That should not be. We are on a fast pace right now. We are in the process of relocating these families. We are also in the process of doing on-site locations. I am happy to say that the Office of Planning and Development, they have met with, we've been having talks. Kanisha Brown, she is really good. And I want to thank Mr. Nelson and Mrs. Spencer, Mr. Norris. We do have a communication. There's a lot of questions. We had a meeting yesterday. I gave them a lot of questions that I would like answers to. I know they think I'm really hard on them, but we've been through this too many times, and there's been a lot of errors and mistakes. The next thing is the phone system in Lincoln Heights. For the month of January, for 2 weeks, we had no phone system. The residents had to get up out of their bed or whatever to walk to the office to find the office closed. It's not, to me, it's not fair to us. I understand we're in a pandemic, but with this relocation for new community, we are not getting the service that we need and deserve from management, nor our human capital component, but I'm dealing with DMPAD on that. But back to our phone system, they said they installed a new phone system where the phones rolled over to the computers of the HMA or the manager. I was told this morning that that's been for 3 weeks, but I can't see it's been in the process of 3 weeks. I've called the office and nothing rolls over. It goes straight to an answering service. We do have a phone line that they no longer use, but the residents don't know that. It's 248534. It's been disconnected. The residents come to me. That also, you have to hold on sometime for almost an hour before someone comes to the phone. Last thing I would say is for resident services. I'm trying, Mr. Manning will send information to, rather than send it to the only reason I find out is Mrs. Spriggs will forward it to me. I feel anything deals with the resident leadership, and that has not been happening, but I hope that gets better. Mr. Garrett, I'm not complaining, I'm complaining, but to me, it's a good complaint. I appreciate everything that everybody making, doing the best they can with what they have. I just would like some kind of way until we can get these 69 families relocated, that our rental office be open 45 days a week. Someone needs to look into that because we do have a lot of issues. And I don't want them to wait to the last minute and force our residents out.
Pat, thanks so much.
They need to make repayment agreement. That needs to play in this, and we're just not getting service.
All right, so let's give Miss. Thank you so much, Miss Malloy. A lot of the questions you raised require.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Can everyone else hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So a lot of the questions or issues that you raised need deeper research and response. But I'm going to ask Mr. Garrett to just respond to the issues that he is able to respond to now. But I also think we need another meeting on our books to address this property sooner rather than later. And I know you guys are doing. I know the team is working hard. The staff's working real hard. I think. What I think we need as a board is sort of more information on a regular basis, so it doesn't seem as though we're caught, off guards. And so I'm going to recommend to Mr. Garrett that, between the month of, it's February already, between now and the end of March, that you bring the board up to speed on all the moving parts on our redevelopments, whether it's RAD or any other developments that are occurring.
And Mr. Garrett, on that note, what I would like to see, and I've been asking for this ever since I've been on the board, the city.
I think she's having problems. Mr. Slover?
Just in keeping with the theme here, I think one of the things that could be helpful, maybe Mr. Robinson, with your expertise in dealing with a lot of facilities issues, we could come up with some sort of a template, a basic template of information that can be used for every single project starting off, and then we can customize it and add stuff and subtract stuff with just a basic template where we can populate information and it can be a living document, so that when we're not always starting from scratch and having to have these conversations. We could have who owns the property, what timelines there are, all these things, so that people have access to this information and we're not just providing it upon request.
Right. I think that's being developed as you speak, and hopefully we can get that done sooner rather than later. So we're on the same page.
All right, because that could reduce a lot of the questions from everybody, and make them more specific to issues as they arise versus general questions.
Yes, sir.
And may I add, Mr. Director, I don't know if you have time to do this within your tender, but I asked this of you even when you was interviewing with us, that this board actually needs to see how much money have the city spent in new community, not DCHA money. I'm talking about the city money. How new community has existed, and there has never been a trend, never, from every mayor that we have with new community, starting from Mayor Williams up into Muriel Bowser. No mayor has ever shown us how much money has been spent on new communities, how much money have their human capital been spent. They had and one thing I've asked, I always wanted to know, why did the collaborative, who was given the opportunity to remain new communities, human capital piece, refused the grant and didn't want to take it on? These are questions this board should be held accountable for, and knowing. New communities have had a lot of partners, and all these partners have received dollars. And out of these dollars, we need to see as now, I can tell you one person that I've tracked from the time of new community, and that was Liz. And I don't even know Liz's last name, but Miss Malloy does. Model. Liz is a great model to show you how new community could have serially worked for residents. And maybe someone need to go back and talk to her so that she can share her story in a video to help other new community residents who are presently in new communities. You have new communities resident, just like Hill, who I forget what unit he lived in. And I definitely showed Mr. Williams the deplorable conditions he lived in. And those conditions, from what I'm understanding, that most of your residents who are living in deplorable conditions, they're not even allowing the maintenance men to come in to even service the unit after the discovery of the unit being deplorable. So how do DCHA deal with situations where many of our residents suffer from the disease of mental illness anyway? And how we do live as hoarders or a lot of filthy conditions. And what is our responsibility with their nurse aides who's supposed to come in and remedy at least their part of the problem, only if our property manager have, for instance. And I know for a fact in many cases, you have like new communities. I mean, like up the street from me, Sue Marshall's group. Okay, you have that group up there who will pay for you when one of your residents have damaged their apartments, your units. You have a lot of that across the board with mental health providers. But however, only your resident property managers know that information. The question is, do Mr. Williams and you know that information, and can the board see that in some type of trend form?
Well, let's have Mr. Garrett answer your question and some of the questions that Ms. Malloy raised. And then we're going to go to some of our non-residents who signed up. Mr. Garrett?
So there was a lot of stuff packed into what Commissioner Mangaspi stated. But I can say, for instance, in reference to individuals that may have mental health issues, we have direct ways to contact healthcare providers to try and assist. For individuals who are hoarders, we have a third-party stakeholder that we engage to assist those particular families. And I also know that Mr. Williams has the ability to call directly to various health aid companies when we believe there's an issue or that the health aid or caretaker is not doing their their job in terms of taking care of a particular family. So I think that's as far as I can go with that particular point without crossing the line. So I see Ms. Malloy raising her hand, so I don't.
Hey, I have a question. As far as for Lincoln Heights, my question to DMPAD was, and they haven't given me an answer, we have a human capital component, which is Homes for Hope. That's what they are supposed to be doing, trying to assist the residents with certain issues. But right now, I can't see it happening. You know, everybody's getting this money, but we are not getting the service. And Commissioner Van Gosford, I understand you very well. A lot of money has been put into the new community human capital component. And John, what's the director from DMPAD? He should be able to tell you how much money the human capital component was given for Lincoln Heights. He should be able to give you all that information.
Ms. Malloy, I think we'll find that information out, not just on your new communities, but other new communities. I think the board wants to know, and once we find it out, we'll share it with the rest of the community. So I really need to get to our other folks who have signed up. So Ms. Malloy, thanks so much
Thank you.
for what you do and for being here today. So we're going to move on to our non-residents who have signed up. Non-residents have 3 minutes. First is Ella Braddock. Ella? Is Ella here? All right, I don't see Ella. Scott Brown.
Hello.
Hey, Scott, go right ahead.
Cool, just give me 1 second here. Great. All right, enter my video. Okay.
I can hear you and see you, Scott. Go right ahead.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. My name's Scott Brown. I live a block away from Park Morton on Park Road Northwest. I've had the joy of building relationships with Park Morton residents, including Ms. High, for the past year, and learning more about the ways they've been repeatedly ignored, disrespected, and pressured into silence by DMPAD, DCHA, and the community builders. You've heard from Park Morton residents over and over and haven't yet taken action to meaningfully engage them around the Park Morton Equity Plan. I'm here to ask, as part of the community that lives alongside the Park Morton residents, to ask you, does the Board of Commissioners genuinely care about the long-term well-being and desires of DCHA residents over profits? If yes, you will make the space to actually hear and engage with their demands by approving the resolution that Ms. Hyde mentioned earlier to urge Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to immediately enter negotiations to implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. We're not asking for anything more than what for-profit developers and middle and upper-class DC residents get all the time. Power to make decisions about the future of a neighborhood, investment of time and resources from city leaders and agencies, and a willingness to work with us to create a path towards our vision. Let's take an example of where this happened just this past year with the Columbia Heights Dog Park at 11th Park. The land where the dog park is located is owned by WMATA. In 2018, WMATA had put the land up for sale, but with the advocacy of a group of neighbors calling themselves 11th and Bark, Councilmember Brandon secured $1.5 million from the city budget to acquire the land, and the mayor contributed an additional $600,000 later on. In negotiations, WMATA withdrew and actually put the property back on the market for sale, but once again, with advocacy from the neighbors and Councilmember Nadeau, they actually pressured them to take it off the market and now are leasing it to the city. So if this can be done for a group of members who have the time, money, and privilege to spend their time as dog park activists, including creating and updating a website and organizing doggy costume contests, it's only blatant racism and classism that would prevent DCHA, DMPAD, and the other stakeholders involved from finding solutions for multi-generational working-class Black residents at Park Morton. So please live up to your commitments to serve your residents, not developers and gentrifiers, by listening to the people of Park Morton and taking up the resolution to immediately enter negotiations to implement the Park Morton Equity Plan at your next Board of Commissioners meeting or in the Development and Modernization Committee. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Scott. Next up is Beth Wagner.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Beth.
So my name is Beth Wagner. I lived in Columbia Heights for 5 years. Now I live in Ward 5. I am a supporter of Ms. High and residents at Park Morton. And today I'm testifying in support of the Park Morton Equity Plan, which demands that Park Morton residents have a true say in their future home, and that they are granted all the resources that they need to thrive during the redevelopment process. Specifically, I'm asking the DCHA board to adopt a resolution authorizing and urging you, Director Tyrone Garrett, to immediately adopt the Park Morton Equity Plan and enter into negotiations with the council at Park Morton on its implementation. Why is this necessary? It has been repeatedly demonstrated and testified to by Ms. High and others that no one will protect the rights of the residents at Park Morton if not the residents themselves. Park Morton residents were promised build first protection so that no one would be displaced. Today, more than 75% of families at the community have been displaced. They're also told that they'll be able to return, which is another extremely tired, empty promise. You can just ask the former residents of Temple Courts who have been waiting for over a decade to return. You can also ask the former residents of their papers. Given the continued mistreatment of public housing residents at the hands of developers aided and abetted by DCHA and the DC government, no reasonable person would trust DCHA with their future homes. That is why Park Morton residents must be granted an equity stake in the redevelopment project so that they can protect their own rights that are being denied to them by this group and others. The Park Morton Equity Plan ensures permanently affordable housing for the residents of Park Morton in the form of an equity stake. Despite DCHA's habit of shuffling human beings around the district like shipping containers, people need this type of stability to survive. The PMAP is extremely reasonable, and there is substantial precedent for this, as Scott just testified to, especially if you reject the discrimination against public housing residents and treat them with the same respect currently afforded to developers. The DC government routinely moves heaven and earth to give huge amounts of money and public land to developers. The DC government sold the wharf, a mile-long waterfront stretch in the nation's capital, valued at $200 million for $1. They gave it away. And then the developer walked back the commitment on affordable housing with no consequences. So what is done in the name of affordable housing does not provide affordable housing or permanent housing. As Mr. William Jordan wrote in his piece on the Georgia Avenue double standard, effectively our government uses every excuse, regulatory, legal, and political maneuver in its arsenal to frustrate the Park Morton Equity Plan, while doing the inverse on behalf of developers and investors. In fact, it strips down the amendments, so this has been referenced. So basically, Park Morton residents are one of the vast majority of our community in Park View, been here for generations, and they should not be pushed out of their neighborhood. They should be actually given an opportunity for real, the opportunity that's given to private corporations every day of the week to protect their future homes permanently. So I would like to demand that the DCHA board add the Park Morton Equity Plan to the resolution to the March meeting agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Beth. Danielle, welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. And I want to apologize for just a note. I'm sharing space here with a 4 and 6 year old. I can't tell them anything, so please pardon any background noise. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Daniel DiPielago, and I'm an organizer with Empower DC. We recently held a meeting with tenant leaders from several different properties, and we discussed what they believe priorities are for this year. We heard the following. Resident involvement needs to be maximized on properties that are actively in a redevelopment or are slated for one, especially under the limitations of COVID, better ways to involve residents need to be found. Residents at properties that are being redeveloped or slated for redevelopment need to know they have a right to return, an actual right of return codified in law and or regulations. Conditions are still a major issue residents are dealing with. Residents understand that redevelopments are planned to improve conditions, but as we've heard throughout the meeting, nothing's happening anytime soon, really, in as far as redevelopment. So relief from these conditions is needed now, not in a couple of years. Communication with residents need to be improved. Timeliness and reach need to be maximized. Many residents are concerned with retaliation from property managers. there is a real disconnect from what residents hear from the top of DCHA to what actually plays out on the properties. There is a culture of fear and intimidation that needs to change. As Ms. Disrow mentioned in her testimony, she got a call today from somebody from DCHA, an area manager, when she's never heard from that person before, but when her name is seen on a list to testify, she all of a sudden gets a call. And that can be taken as intimidation. Residents are concerned about the recertification process. Aside from the extensive bureaucratic nature of recertifications, residents don't feel like the turnaround on these updates is happening quickly enough. As a result, many residents go through a balance in rent, arrears in rent, when their income has changed, but rents have not been adjusted to reflect that. We believe that arrears need to be wiped out. These are not new issues, and you've heard them repeatedly. However, we have a new year to improve on what's been happening. Resident voice and experience needs to be centered. Because of these issues, public housing residents not only suffer from very real medical issues, but also from undue mental stress. Public housing and its residents are a key piece to the success of this city. We need to hold on to the only true affordable housing left in the district and ensure that the residents that make this city work are taken care of. Thank you, commissioners, and I hope you take that into consideration as we begin in another year.
Great, thanks so much, Daniel, as usual. Next up is Michaela Holland.
Yep, I'm on the line.
Hi, Michaela, go right ahead.
Great. My name is Michaela Holland, and I am testifying to urge the Board of Commissioners to adopt Resolution 20 to authorize the adoption and implementation of the Park Morton Equity Plan, or at the very least, take the resolution to the Development and Modernization Committee for consideration. I'm a Parkview resident and previously lived off of Park Morton. And as a result, I got the opportunity to meet some very warm and welcoming residents that have given me a particular fondness for the community there. I've since learned about the housing authority's ongoing neglect of the property, their broken promises about temporary off-site housing, the widespread displacement of Park Morton residents, and the failure to deliver on residents' legal right to an equitable stake in the community. In my conversations with residents, it's been very clear that Park Morton is not just of buildings. In some cases, several generations have lived there, and there's a strong sense of pride in the community that has built up around the area. Displacing these families with no clear plan in place for return is clearly destabilizing for those families, especially when they have limited resources to handle that change, and especially during a worldwide pandemic. But losing those residents would also mean losing an important community, the kind that has long made DC what it is, and the kind that is rapidly disappearing in favor of the same inaccessible, expensive condo developments that can be found in any other gentrifying city in the US. I once believed that the harms of gentrification were an consequence of the process of capitalism, but that just is not true. DCHA does not support special private developers while leaving long-term residents out in the cold. This equity plan and measures like it gives you an opportunity to support long-term residents and families and make sure they have a voice in what happens in their neighborhood. Too many Black and Brown residents in the district have been denied for decades, and I would request that you make this time different. We demand that the DCHA board add the Park Equity Plan resolution to the March meeting agenda. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michaela, for weighing in on this issue. Next up is Mandy Lee. Mandy? All right, let's move on to...
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Took a second to unmute. Hi, so my name is Mandy Lee, and I'm a neighbor just down the street from Park Morton. Thanks for allowing our comment here today. And I'm here in support and solidarity with the Residents Council at Park Morton, asking you to review and support the resolution that they've submitted, Resolution 20, to authorize the adoption and implementation of the Park Morton Equity Plan at the next meeting in March. As many others have talked about today, DCHA needs to undertake a true and deep reckoning about this redevelopment project. And it is overdue, in my opinion, that DCHA shift from the failed build first approach to a resident first approach. The residents at Park Morton, the people who know their community best and have the lived experience of the failures and false promises of the new community initiative, develop their own equity plan, as you know. We ask that you commit to the Park Morton equity plan and have Executive Director Tyrone Garrett enter into immediate negotiations with the council at Park Morton for a satisfactory agreement with residents around their demands for racial and economic justice. Each time that I testify like this, there are fewer and fewer families at Park Morton and more stories of harm that my neighbors have experienced. At the moment, there are now fewer than 40 families out of 147 total units scattered across the Park Morton site after 13 years of uncertainty, stress, delays, neglect, dilapidation, frankly, disrespect, notices to vacate despite protections against eviction nationwide, pressure to accept vouchers, and displacement across the city. I want to advocate that it's time to think about repairing the harms and rebuilding the lost trust. And since NCI failed as an anti-displacement model for the country, it's time to award Park Morton residents rights as a development partner and equity owners. Park Morton residents deserve to have an equity stake so they can help make decisions for their own future and reap some financial benefit to build towards stability and generational wealth, which poor Black people in our city have been denied for generations. Park Morton residents envision a future of homeownership, including the creation of a limited equity housing cooperative. It's time to reach agreements for on-site and off-site relocation that halt displacement as the first phase of redevelopment begins at Park Morton, as well as the actionable and full rate of return for the hundreds of eligible families. And this is what I think it would look like for this project to be resident first and equity first. What the residents are asking for isn't radical, as Beth was just talking about. In fact, it's on par with the kind of support, care, and attention the city routinely offers to developers. So please take this moment to take stock of the potential legacy of this project and listen to those on the front lines of housing insecurity in the middle of a pandemic who are devoted to building a better future. We ask that you review and implement Resolution 20 at your next meeting in March and take all necessary steps to adopt and implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Catherine Quinn.
Thank you. Sorry, one moment. Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Quinn. I live on the edge of Parkview and Petworth in Ward 1, barely a 10-minute walk from Park Morton. While I am relatively new to the neighborhood, I strongly believe that it's our collective responsibility to respect and prioritize the needs and rights of those who have lived here the longest, including those living in Park Morton. That's what community looks like. Today, I'm testifying in support of Ms. High and the Park Morton Equity Plan, which demands that Park Morton residents have a true say in the future of their home and that they're granted all the resources they need to thrive during and after the redevelopment process. I'm asking the DCHA board to adopt the resolution authorizing and urging DCHA Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to immediately adopt the Park Morton Equity Plan and enter into negotiations with the council at Park Morton on its implementation. As one of the last majority Black communities in Parkview, it's critical that Park Morton residents not be pushed out of their home to make room for gentrification and development. Doing so would be nothing but taking a sledgehammer to our community. Instead, Park Morton residents deserve an equity stake in the redevelopment project to afford them a voice in decisions and a financial benefit to help residents build financial stability through accrual of wealth and assets, something Black people in our city have been consistently and systematically denied. I've heard arguments that the current plan for Park Morton will be an improvement. While we should, of course, strive for a positive end result, the manner in which we arrive at that result is equally, if not more, important. The way we get from current to future Park Morton can only be successful and equitable if we deeply engage with and value the inputs of Park Morton residents. So to close, I support the demands of the Park Morton residents who urge the board to adopt the resolution supporting the immediate adoption and implementation of the Park Morton Equity Plan. At minimum, this resolution should be taken to the Development and Modernization Committee for consideration. I would also ask that the DCHA board add the Park Morton Equity Plan resolution to the March meeting agenda, given the importance of this issue to our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Quinn. Next is Elizabeth Lovinger.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
We can hear you, yes.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Levenger. I'm a very proud resident of Parkview. I live just across the street from Park Morton, and so the Park Morton Equity Plan is very close to my heart, and I'm very proud to call Ms. High and other residents of Park Morton my neighbors. Today, I'm testifying in support of the Park Morton Equity Plan, which demands that Park Morton residents have a true say in the future of their home, and that they're granted all the resources they need to thrive during the redevelopment process. I'm asking the DCHA board to adopt the resolution authorizing and urging DCHA Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to immediately adopt the Park Morton Equity Plan and enter into meaningful negotiations with the council at Park Morton on its implementation. And while I appreciate Mr. Garrett's assertion during this meeting that they will be holding a meeting with Park Morton residents, I want to stress that there is a need for sustained, regular, and predictable communication with residents and with the Residents' Council. This cannot be periodic meetings that happen at DCHA's discretion. This needs to be a true partnership and a true ongoing communication with residents so that residents are adequately able to give input to a project that is determining really, truly their lives. I really specifically support the Park Morton Equity Plan because home ownership opportunities are regularly made available to gentrifiers and other new residents within DC. You see this in many, many iterations. And Park Morton residents, many of these residents have been in the community for generations. And so these are residents that really deserve to have an equity stake in the redevelopment project so that they can have a consistent say in decisions affecting their future. And they can reap some financial benefit of the project to help residents build toward financial stability and building wealth and assets, which poor Black people in our city have been denied for generations, as many others have testified to before me today. And I really just want to stress that, this is something that is not out of the ordinary. I know other folks have testified to how many aspects of the equity plan have been made available to others throughout the city just because they happen to be for-profit developers, just because they happen to be folks with more resources and more money at their disposal. And so these are very reasonable demands, especially for residents at Park Morton, many of whom have been here for generations and have contributed immensely to the community and to the broader district around them. So just in closing, I'd like to demand that the board add the Park Morton Equity Plan resolution to the March meeting agenda and act in good faith and in partnership with the residents at Park Morton. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Next is Vic Baker.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
We could, yes.
Great. Hi, my name is Vic Baker. I live in Parkview, actually, right across the street from Park Morton. And for the past 9 months or so, I've been working with Park Morton residents and alongside other neighbors in Parkview on the Park Morton struggle for equity. And I'm here testifying today in support of the Park Morton Equity Plan. This plan was created by Park Morton residents, and it demands that Park Morton residents have a true say in the future of their home and that they are granted all of the resources they need to thrive during the redevelopment process. So I'm asking the DCHA board to adopt the resolution authorizing and urging DCHA Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to immediately adopt the Park Morton Equity Plan and enter into negotiations with the council at Park Morton on its implementation. I want to believe that this redevelopment started with good intentions of giving Park Morton residents a home where they can thrive, as the buildings are clearly old and in need of repair. And the model of Build First was meant to prevent displacement, but this plan has failed. Many blame the holdup at Bruce Monroe, but there is no excuse for the harm that has happened. And instead of continuing to place blame and point fingers while communities are being disrupted, DCHA needs to take ownership of its failures and start negotiations with the council at Park Morton immediately. To talk about the harm done, almost 90 families have been displaced, many out of Ward 1 entirely, and over 50 have been moved out during the current COVID pandemic, which is absolutely unacceptable. One family was moved out yesterday. Park Morton residents are one of the last majority Black communities in Parkview, and they've been here for generations. And this displacement has cut these deep community ties. And all of this in the middle of a global pandemic when our social ties and communities are so crucial to our well-being and survival. This is their home, and they deserve to have an equity stake in this redevelopment. They deserve to have a say in these decisions that are affecting their home. They deserve to have a say in the decisions that are affecting their lives. The Park Morton residents, and not just the wealthy developers, deserve to reap the financial benefits of this project so that they can build financial stability and build wealth, which poor Black people in our city have been denied for generations. This failure has gone on too long and too many families have been harmed, and things must change now. And Park Morton residents need to be included in correcting this plan. So I demand that the DCHA board add the Park Morton Equity Plan resolution to the March meeting agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. Next is Julia Friedman. Ms. Friedman?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Julia Friedman. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak today. I am a resident of Ward 1. I moved here over a year and a half ago, and I've been organizing alongside Ward 1 Mutual Aid since the end of this past summer. I'm also here to voice my support for Park Morton residents and the Residents Council President, Ms. Shonda High, in their fight to remain in their community and have a say in their future under the Park Morton Equity Plan. Because every day that I walk through the neighborhoods and communities in the district, I know that I owe the very foundation of the streets I walk on to the longtime residents who have built families and businesses and constructed the pavement under my feet. And so I know that the Park Morton Residents Council with the Park Morton Equity Plan has developed a vision to keep families together in Parkview, keep a majority Black community together, and have a say in their future. Which is an economically sustainable and self-sufficient future, and one that we should promote. The DCHA Board of Commissioners should fully support this plan, just as the ANC 1A did in October by taking up committee or at your next meeting the resolution to urge DCHA Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to negotiate and implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. Instead of rushing residents out of Park Morton with few safe and viable housing alternatives during a pandemic, DCHA has an opportunity here to create a unique and innovative model of community-driven solutions with the Park Morton Equity Plan. It's interesting because equity, in order to achieve equity, you have to have equity. And that's what the Park Morton Equity Plan does, is it gives residents the opportunity to have equity to ensure that they have an actual legitimate stake in their future. And it's a future where they can keep building roots and long-term financial security and continue nourishing a community. And all of this is possible. All of this is an opportunity for the district. It's an opportunity for the neighborhood. It's not just the right thing to do. It will benefit everyone in Parkview. And so as a neighbor to Park Morton, I believe that the DCHA Board of Commissioners should support this plan because residents are full and equal and empowered partners, and they should be viewed as financial partners as well. Park Morton residents are not a problem to be solved or a group of people to be relocated. They and the vision that they are presenting are the solution. So I urge the board today to pass this resolution and negotiate and implement the Park Morton Equity Plan as a vote to affirm the rights of longtime DC residents to remain part of the very fabric of neighborhoods that they have built. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Julia, for being here. Last but not least is William Jordan. William, nice to see you again.
Happy New Year and good to see you. I'm here today as again, my name is William Jordan, and I'm here today as a member of the Park Morton Equity Plan team. I'm here to share some of the elements in the resolution that people have been referring to, as well as to make a few other quick points and we can move on. So the resolution asks that Park Morton residents become equity owners and part of the development team. that we end displacement until an acceptable relocation plan is in place, that we negotiate a self-sufficiency plan in place to ensure residents are empowered to implement their responsibilities under the Park Morton Equity Plan, an actionable right to return as negotiated and overseen by the council at Park Morton. The Housing Authority brings to bear all its technical and financial resources to ensure the proper implementation of the Park Morton Equity Plan, including urging its development partners at DHCD, DNPAD, and et cetera to do the same. A realistic timeline that does not keep residents away from the property for a period of any more than 2.5 years. That Executive Garrett report to this committee on a monthly basis so the board can provide oversight with the implementation of the Park Morton Equity Plan. That TCD be removed as the lead master developer. They can remain in the team, but I think they've blown it as the lead. And that that we locate an alternative build first site, even though that ship has kind of sailed within a mile of Park Morton to reassemble that community. The second thing I wanted to bring up, allude to, since 2017, DNPAD has spent $13.3 million just on Park Morton new communities. When this process started, we had 133 residents on the property in 2014. If we divide that, that would have been 100,000 per resident. If we look recently, Councilmember Kenny McDuffie did a letter to the editor, basically an opinion piece, talking about DC's racial equity agenda. And one of the things he mentioned is that the median income or median wealth of a Black family is $38,000. Well, anyway, basically that 100,000 would have closed the wealth gap or helped to close the wealth gap in this city since what's been spent since 2017. And this process has been going on since 2007. So that's what I have to say. And I hope that you all will adopt this resolution, send it to the committee, subcommittees, have a brown bag with us, work with us, put this on the agenda, and let's move equitably in this year of racial equity and make DC Housing Authority the model for building racial equity in the city. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much. We actually do have one other person that signed up, Chris Kearns McCoy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we could.
Thank you. Thank you for processing my registration. I know it came in at a late time. I'm a resident of Parkview. I live on Harvard Street, just a few blocks south of Park Morton. And over the last year, I've had the absolute joy of getting to know Park Morton, my Park Morton neighbors, including Miss Hyde. My apologies. I'm having a little trouble finding my remarks. I just want to say what DCHA has been doing for years to Park Morton residents is wrong. You guys have pushed them far past the point of safety, neglecting buildings, lying to Miss High, intimidating residents, lying to residents, and doing basically whatever you can to get residents to pack their bags and leave. There are now less than 40 families remaining in Park Morton. And I'm here today to insist that you treat Miss High and all the Park Morton residents with the respect that they deserve, and that you treat Park Morton families as the vital members of our community that they are, not obstacles to be cleared out of the way and forgotten about. And you can do this by passing the resolution to authorize and urge DCHA Executive Director Tyrone Garrett to immediately enter into negotiations with the Park Morton Residents Council to implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. You have a duty to Park Morton residents. You have made countless promises to them. It's been a lot of promises and a lot of obfuscation and a lot of excuses, but every time a plan has been put forward that looks good, y'all haven't followed through on it. And if you have a shred of decency, you'll direct DCHA leadership to enter into good faith negotiations with the Park Morton Residents Council in order to implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. That's the only path forward that actually honors the spirit and goals of the original promises that y'all made. The plan creates supports for Park Morton residents who are relocating so that they can stay in this neighborhood. It gives them equity in the project so they can have a say in the decisions that are impacting the future of their homes. And it invests in building skills and resources so that residents have more stable, independent futures. Park Morton community members deserve much better. These are some of the longest standing members of our community. The intimidation, neglect, and disrespect of Miss High and all the Park Morton residents is frankly outrageous. DCHA needs to keep true to what you promised years ago, to redevelop safe homes while not displacing longtime residents, and invest in building new communities that improve residents' lives. And you need to do so by implementing the Park Morton Equity Plan. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Chris. And I want to just thank everyone who provided testimony today, whether it was on Park Morton or Melville Rad or any other issue. I just want you to know that we really do appreciate you taking time to do so. On the Park Morton initiative, I know last year Daniel, William, Ms. High, and a couple of others have had some meetings around the issues around Park Morton. I'd like to suggest, because I don't know a lot about the Park Morton Equity Plan, I'd love to learn some more. At the risk of having another meeting with William, just kidding, William, and Danielle and Ms. High, I'd love to suggest that we reconvene those gatherings to see if we could, at least from my point of view, find some symmetry in our approach if there is opportunity for that, but at least see what elements of the plan, of your plan, might be implementable immediately, might be forced into the overall NCI goals if it's possible. I don't know enough, but the suggestion, what I'd like to suggest is a continued dialogue. Love to encourage my board colleagues to join me in that dialogue. And so Daniel or Bill or Shanta, I will follow up with you guys offline to get that going. And to all the residents, particularly the new ones that have moved into the neighborhood, thank you so much for adopting the neighborhood and for showing your support to the Park Morton community today. Before we end, I know Commissioner Slover wanted to make a comment.
I appreciate that sort of recap. You know, I've been on this board since, well, it's my second tour of duty, but in 2009, when I was on this board, we were talking about this same project. And so, you know, at some point, you know, I think I just want to close the loop on what we talked about earlier, which is we've got to set a foundation here in terms of information about where we are and where we're going, so that we don't have these continued conversations about, you know, misrepresentations or failures, you know, all these things, all of which may or may not be true depending on how you're looking at it. But the information flow is just not there. And so I think that, you know, maybe what comes out of this conversation is a more meaningful back and forth about where we are, where we're going, what's realistic, what's not realistic. I mean, look, we keep talking about not displacing people, but the current plan only has 47 replacement units on the Park Morton current existing site. So a lot of it's about language and what we're saying and what we're actually saying. So are we displacing the majority of the current residents of Park Morton? Absolutely, under this plan we are. They're not going to be coming back to this site. That is a fact. So until we start dealing in facts and not in sort of dialogue that sort of continues the conversation and gets us out of a conversation and starts having real dialogue about this, we're going to continue to have these conversations that aren't going anywhere. So what I would encourage out of this is an honest dialogue about where we are in the project, where we're going, and trying to infuse some of the other ideas and not walling off those ideas. I've had a lot of conversations with Ms. I and Mr. Jordan and Daniel about this plan. I think there's some elements of it that make a lot of sense. I think there's some elements that personally I don't think we can do. But that's not to say we shouldn't listen to and try and figure out whether some of the stuff they're talking about makes sense. So let's do that. You know, we keep saying we're going to do it, but we don't do it. Neil, I think you're ready to do it. We're all ready to do it. Let's do it. Okay. I don't want to have this conversation again in 2 months. And I don't think you do either. So let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to have an ongoing conversation, but not a new conversation about Park Morton or Barry Farm or Lincoln Heights. You know, the NCI is very well intentioned. Times have changed. Situations have changed. We have to change. There's a different reality. That's why we're on this board, to move things forward. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Shanta, I will be back in touch with you and Danielle and William either later this week or early next week. Thanks, my colleagues, for all the time you spent today. We are going to adjourn this meeting. The next Board of Commissioners meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 10th, 2020 at 1 p.m. via WebEx. Until then, everyone be safe. Hope to see you soon.
Okay, this is the court reporter